On this edition of Forever Home, we're talking about exterior water leaks and specifically challenges with scallop sidings and freeze boards when you don't leave enough room to get the flashing layers right. That's next on this edition of Forever Home. Here we go. So Norm and I are hanging out here in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and you can see we've got the ladders and all the equipment set up. I was out here a week ago, and we might cut to some of this footage where I was inside of the house, and they had a water leak going on in an upstairs room. So we got in there and tried to figure out where it's coming from, and what we determined, it was actually coming in at the bottom corner of one of these windows. So as we come up here and we look, you know, all this insulation is nice and white and fluffy and beautiful. Then we get here and we've got this dark color and it's all kind of crunchy together. You know, it's not soft and fluffy like it should be. So what's going on? We're gonna come straight up the wall here, and there's the bottom corner of the window. And we've got a little bit of dark spot here, and this sheet of plywood is just a little bit leaning out from this one. There's a difference there, so any water that's coming in that outside sheet can land on top of this and come in. So it may be coming in right here, and it may be coming in here because of J-channel around this window and things not being house wrapped correctly. It's my first guess. And then we come down here, wet drywall looking stuff. I'm guessing that's the same spot that we're at down. So if that's the same spot, then our problem is likely here at this corner of the window and this piece of plywood. All right, so up on the top of this peak, we have scalloped siding up top at the level of the window, and then we have a freeze board here, which is just a piece of wood that they capped with aluminum, and then you have this normal vinyl siding in the vertical orientation down below. I've popped the two pieces of vinyl, looks like 5/4 AZAC trim, and right behind here you can see that wood is completely soaked and saturated. And I think one of the challenges is this piece of metal that they cap the front with goes straight back. It doesn't have a leg up. It should have a leg up, and then there should be house wrap that comes down over that leg, so any water that comes down has to get pushed to the outside. Right now, water's sitting on this. It's getting trapped in this J-channel area, and that's getting funneled behind this wall. And that joint that I showed you in the plywood is probably somewhere, you know, just down behind this. And then we get the same kind of situation over here. They got a little bit more plastic that they put in, but same situation. The wood back there is getting wet, and that water is getting in, and it will eventually wind up on the bedroom ceiling in the right rainstorm. Now the challenge with this scallop siding is that the only way to take it apart is from the top all the way down, and I'll show you the difference between regular siding and scallop siding. So this is normal double, probably 4-inch Dutch lap siding, and with this siding you can usually fairly easily just put your hand on one of these joints and pull it apart, or I can take my siding rip tool, put that underneath, work it in, and use that to separate a piece of siding. Once I do that, then I can get back here to the nails, which are located at the top edge of this panel right here, and you can see the house wrap that's there. And we can pop those nails. I can swap out one piece of siding in the middle of the wall, no problem. And then when I'm all said and done, I take my siding rip tool, and it just zips right back together as if it was never there. Let's go look at scallop siding and see how that's different. So when you've got scallop siding or cedar shake siding or any of the more rigid types of siding product, you'll see that there's an interlock panel here that kind of sits behind the other one. And then the nails go way up high here in the top. And then the next piece, it's got these flips, flanges down here on the bottom. They sit down and they interlock into that layer down below it. There's no way for me to get that siding rip tool underneath there to get this apart. The only way to take this apart to get to this piece is to remove this piece. And so we have to start from the top and work our way down. So that's what you'll see Noam working on up here on the top, and we'll take you up the ladder and show you what that looks like. So as you can see, we started up here at the peak and we are working our way down, removing those nails as we go and very carefully trying to get this apart so we can get down around the window, because the problem is down here at the bottom of the window. And we'll cut to that next. So here's what we found so far. The AZAC that was on top of here did not have any kind of drip cap, and the house wrap obviously stops short of the window all the way around. So that's not helping matters any. Any water that gets behind here has a path potentially into the top of this. So we're gonna pop these nails, probably take this window out and get house wrap into the opening all the way around. And then where the real problem is taking place is down here at the bottom. So Norm's hypothesis here, and I think it's a good one, I like it, is that the guys put the window in and they put the AZAC trim around it, and then the siding guys came after and had to figure out how to do this. And the reason we think that is you look at this drip cap here, this piece of metal bends back, over, and up like it's supposed to, except for right behind where that AZAC trim was. And so any water that comes down this gets back here, gets through the caulk that might have been here, lands on this sill, or that runs in the end of this J channel. It has a path down behind here to get down the back side of that. And who knows how this is drained. But this drip cap, this piece of Z-shaped metal, should continue all the way across, and we need to find a way to do something smart underneath this window here. So this whole freeze board's gonna come off, and we're gonna figure out how to get some ice and water shield and everything down behind this, and then possibly run another drip cap on top of this piece of J-channel here in order to make sure that any water that gets down has a path out to daylight. So we got a lot more water damage over here on this side. That's where the bulk of the issue was happening, where water was getting in, and we know that we have a massive amount of water coming in, probably because it was running down this J-channel, coming across that bottom J-channel, getting funneled into that corner, because again, you can see right here, that piece of Z-shaped metal, over, down, and down again, that did not continue all the way across the window, and even if it had, they would have had to put a massive amount of goo into this corner and in here to keep water from getting down there. So just all around, some challenges, some things that weren't done right because of building out of sequence, batting out of order, as Norm likes to say. So we're gonna keep cranking on this and get more of it apart and figure out how to put it back together in a way that's waterproof, that water flows downhill and is always moving to the outside. All right, so what Norm is removing now is the rubber plastic window sill pan that they put in, which isn't really much of anything. And you can see here in the corners just how much damage has started to occur there where this water was getting down and behind. Sort of the same thing over on the other side over there where the water just gets down behind, and because there's no protection, there's no house wrap, all this OSB is just exposed. And it was behind the freeze board, but if you don't have that continuous flashing layer under this and over this, which is what we're gonna put back, you leave this stuff vulnerable here. Now the water damages here has not gotten so far that we have to replace this, so we're just going to be able to go over that for now and save the customer some expense of the added expense of trying to replace the OSB. But we're going to take all this old stuff off and then get ice and water shield from here up and create a new window pan with some window tape and then get ready to put all this back together. But we've got to get this house wrapped into the opening so that we have something to put our sealant on when we set the nail fin of the window back in here.
So I just cut this straight down,
Okay.
and then we wrap the window tape around it. Or Tyvek rather.
So we've got our ice and water shield down over the bottom piece of Tyvek here, covering all that exposed wood that was there before, cut and flapped into the windowsill, window tape in the corners to bring that up, and then house wrap over that. So any water that gets into that jam or down is going to wind up on top of that window tape. And then we have some horseshoe shims, which we will show you right here. These guys are going to go in the bottom like this, and that's going to facilitate drainage below the nail fin. So any water that gets onto this sill come out. Norm is working on applying the quad sealant where the nail fin is going to go. We're only going to do it on three sides, top, left, and right. We will leave the bottom open, so again, that any water that ever got back there because a window leaked or something happened, it has a way to drain and dry to the outside. Once we get the window in, then we're going to stick another piece of house wrap up underneath all of that on top of the nail fin, so we have continuous flashing layers continually pushing that water to the outside. All right, so we've got the next piece of metal bent. You'll see we've formulated essentially a drip cap. You can see that comes down, over, and cuts back, completely covers this piece of J-channel here. And that's gonna come up, and we haven't finished tying this in yet, but it's gonna be lapped underneath this, and we'll probably have to extend or get another piece of house wrap underneath here and down on top of that. But the critical part is that this piece of flashing is up behind and underneath the nail fin. And once we finish finalizing things, we're gonna bring 3-inch wide window tape right down over the face of this nail fin and the house wrap to tie it all together and down on top of this metal. Any water that ever gets behind the freeze board now has to come out and go over, and we have our ice and water shield down and onto the house wrap that's behind the vertical siding here. So Norm's working on fabricating another piece to slip this in, so you can see that we slipped that down behind the step flashing, and then we've got another second piece there that's going to help extend that step flashing down on top of this drip cap to make sure that any water that comes down is going to wind up getting moved and pushed to the outside. So here on the window, we're now going to put our horseshoe shims in. Remember, we caulked on 3 sides but not the bottom, and these shims are going to allow any water that ever got behind that window to have a path out to daylight. Now, in theory, we don't expect there to be any water back there, but if it gets back there, it can come down the ice and water shield and will land up. If it gets behind, it lands on this ice and water shield, it's going to wind up on top of the house wrap down here, which is going to be on top of that aluminum flashing down there on the roof deck. And if it winds up coming down through these J-channel pockets here, it's going to be in front of that piece of metal, which is going to come out above the drip cap. So either way, we're protected, but these horseshoe shims just give that any water that would ever get around the window jamb a nice path to daylight. And we don't need much. We're just talking about a 16-inch gap, just enough to allow drainage and drying. So let's talk about where we're up to now. So we've nailed the nail fin on, which was set into some adhesive goo. In this specific case, we used quad, and then we nailed that on there, and now we've window taped this. And so we start from the bottom here, and we work our way up. And what that's going to allow to have happen is if any water ever gets into this pocket of the window here, we're still going to have Versatex AZAC PVC trim board on the outside of this. But if any water ever got behind there, blown in past whatever the caulking method is, it's going to come down, it's going to hit that nail fin, it's going to hit this window tape, it's going to wind up on top of this piece of metal, it's going to follow this piece of metal behind the freeze board and then out and over this drip cap. So we know that no water can ever get into the house at this point because those shingle lapped layers are all building one in front of the other as the water would come down. Okay, and then we come to the top, and so the vertical pieces are first, and there's a head piece of window tape that goes on second across the top, both sides here. So that's shingle lapped, and that is just kind of giving us, if any water ever got behind here, which it shouldn't, but if it did, at least that nail fin is taped to the top of the window, window jamb here on the sheathing, and it's again got that quad adhesive goo behind there. And then we've shingle lapped the house wrap up underneath here, and the water comes down in front of this, in front of the tape, in front of this tape, coming all the way down in front of the piece of metal and out the drip cap at the bottom. So now that we've got this all taped in, belt and suspenders, ready to rock and roll, show you a little bit more detail here on this piece of step flashing. Now, not super critical, you know, this is gonna come out and land on top here, but that freeze board again is going here, then that's getting capped, and then it's gonna have its integral step flashing for its drip cap over there as well. So again, belt and suspenders, making sure that if any water ever got back here, it shouldn't get back here, but if it does, that's how we know that it's being moved to daylight. It doesn't have a chance to get behind the house. So now you can get a good close up here of these horseshoe shims, showing the opportunity for drainage and drying out through here. And as far as air penetration, well, this is a ventilated attic, so it doesn't matter anyways, but had this been in the living space of the house, we would be back damming and air sealing this window, and you can learn more about that on our exterior leaks video playlist, on our vinyl siding playlist, on the new exterior playlist. There's a bunch of places where we link to information about back damming and air sealing these windows, so that because we have open air here, it doesn't see any pressure coming through because it's stopped at the backside. There's no room for through flow air to carry moisture in because it's back dammed and it's air sealed. On the backside of the jam, we've moved that water barrier and that air barrier to the backside, and that's why you don't have to worry about water and wind-driven water getting in, up, and over. It's just not going to happen because there's nowhere for that air to go to. There's no flue throw at all. So we'll give you the long shot from down here. This is the rest of this piece of drip cap that again is on top of the ice and water shield. That's back here. Ice and water shield is continuous down onto the house wrap that's here, which is out on top of the flashing down below. So if any water got back here, it's coming out. We've got our drip cap that brings the water from behind the freeze board out in front. And then once we put our freeze board on, the next piece will be another piece of drip cap on that's going to get lapped behind this piece of Tyvek up here, crossing over to the window. We'll show you that on the next piece of footage.
Since we don't have a stapler.
Ooh, look, shiny. That's what a window with proper window tape and the house wrap layered correctly should look like. All right, we now have the last piece of aluminum put in on that side, and of course underneath the window here, and we cut some relief tabs we had to cut off for the window, but that's why we put that extra piece behind, so anything that gets behind the freeze board behind the window will come out down here on the bottom. But then we took and we put this face piece on. It's got a 2-inch leg that comes up. We've completely filled that hole with goo on both sides. We got some nice quad filling that to make sure that no water can get behind the window. If it does get behind the window, it's going to leak out here because there's no sealant at the bottom. We don't want to put sealant at the bottom. We want water to have drainage and drying out, and of course we also have drainage and drying down out the bottom side of the freeze board here. So water has the opportunity to get out of this assembly if it gets back there some way, somehow. And then the house wrap comes down, lapped over top of that 2-inch sill. So that any water that comes down behind the siding is going to wind up getting pushed to the front. We'll put our J channel in here next. And that, of course, is continuous all the way across. So again, we just want to make sure that any water that comes down the face of the house wrap has a path to daylight and is constantly being pushed forward and to the outside. If this house wrap was behind this piece of aluminum capping, the aluminum capping would be doing no good whatsoever. So the next step is Norm is going to cut some of our AZAC trim board. That's going to go back here around the window. So we have a piece of 1x4 or 5/4x4 going on each side, up and across in the head. We will then bend some additional metal as a Z-cap, drip cap, over that top head flashing piece. And once that is done, we are ready to start reassembling the vinyl siding, the scallop boards, and putting them back up here. So we do have each one of those boards numbered, so we know where they go back, but that's also kind of the general layout there on the ground, and we'll bring those back up a couple pieces at a time and get them reinstalled where they go. So now we've got the head flash on top of the AZAC lapped up underneath the house wrap here, and the water that comes down out on top of that out to the face. And over the front, we've got this sealed with adhesive, and if any water did get back there, it's got past the daylight down at the bottom, out underneath here. So life is good. We're ready to throw J-channel on and keep rocking and rolling. So you can see here on the previous installation, they relied heavily on this bead of caulk sitting on top of the freeze board. In this case, we no longer need to do that because we now have this lip up the back, helping to hold things. Shingle lapping is far superior to using sealant, which can break down over time, especially it's out on the front edge where it's exposed to the UV rays from the sun. So we're just about wrapped up here on this repair job, trying to get everything waterproofed and right. You can see that we've got the scallop siding back up and installed. Norm's peeling the final bit of trim tape off of the new AZAC PVC trim boards that have gone in. We've got our head flash up on top of that window, all the siding back up, and now it's just a matter of bringing down the tools and getting everything cleaned up. So if we can solve a problem for you, take a picture of what's bugging you, send it to our team right here on our Facebook page. Click that Contact Us button there at the top. If you found this helpful, we hope you like this video. Hit that subscribe button on our channel and the notifications bell so you get updated about all of our content that's going to help you know what questions you should be asking when you're interviewing a contractor for work on your home. I hope what you get out of this is that there's an awful lot of detail and nuance that go into waterproofing something and getting it correct. And sometimes when you have multiple different trades doing the building of a house, framers coming in, the person who's installing the windows is there, then you've got the siding person. If the three of them are not coordinating, then you can kind of have these problems that do occur. So it's important that as you're doing some repairs on your house, that you've got a crew that's competent in all these areas to be able to pull those different pieces together and make it right, make it done in such a way that you know that your forever home is going to be protected, and that's not just done, that you're proud to say it was coat built. So I want to encourage you to go through our playlist here on our YouTube channel. We have a number of different lists that deal with the exterior water leaks, one specifically called Exterior Water Leaks, Get the Flashing Right. We have others on how to install windows, how to install doors. We have a playlist on a complete exterior renovation. I put a lot of details in that about this. We have a storm damage video series. So these different playlists are designed to help walk you through the different steps in the process in various different situations and circumstances that hopefully, whether you live here local in southeastern Chester, southeastern Pennsylvania, Southern Chester County area where we can come and serve you, great. Or if you live somewhere else across the country, we've gotten calls from all over the place, from Florida to Jersey to West Virginia, out in Ohio, customers calling us, clients calling, asking just questions about the video. So leave a comment down below. We have a tendency to try to answer all of those here on our YouTube channel and try to get back to folks. So there's nothing that our team doesn't do: roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, kitchens, bathrooms, basements, flooring, gutters and drainage, plumbing, electrical, drywall, spackle, paint, build your custom dream home addition or garage. Let us know what problem we can solve for you. Drew and Norm hanging out in beautiful Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Cope Construction and Renovation is a Pennsylvania home improvement contractor, registered number 88078, based at 3114 Limestone Road, Suite 1C, Cochranville, Pennsylvania 19330. We have a dedicated office staff standing by to answer your calls weekdays 9:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon at 484-748-7708. Hit extension 2 to talk to us about your project and what's going on with your forever home. Remember, we're finished with you. You'll be proud to say it's not just done, it was coat built. We'll catch you on the next edition of Forever Home. Bye for now.